On September 27th, 2007, at 4 in the afternoon, 27-year-old Michelle Cardenas, a popular middle school teacher, was driving home in her Honda Civic on a 4-lane rural major highway entering Hialeah, Florida. Parked on the right shoulder was an 18-wheeler truck driven by Rigoberto Machado, hauling a load of plants from South Miami to various Walmarts. Machado, without warning, illegally did the unbelievable. He pulled a U-turn across the divided double-lane highway, causing Michelle's car to unavoidably smash into the undercarriage of his 18-wheeler, ripping the entire car's roof off its hinges. Today, the Insider Exclusive presents the true story of the miraculous courage of Michelle Cardenas and how her lawyers, Stuart Greenberg and Mark Stone, partners at the law firm of Greenberg and Stone, got justice for Michelle by clearly proving the discrepancies in the truck driver's testimony and by demonstrating correct and safe driving procedures for turning 18-wheelers around. It's earned them the highest respect from citizens and lawyers alike as one of the best plaintiff trial lawyers in Florida and in the nation. They have seen many innocent, hardworking people suffer needless injury, and because of that, they are driven to help people who have been harmed by the negligent actions of others. Their goal, not only to get justice for Michelle, but to make America's highways safer and trucking companies and their insurance companies much more accountable. Hi, I'm Steve Murphy, and this is the Insider Exclusive, live from Miami, Florida, at the law firm of Greenberg and Stone. It is my great privilege to introduce Stuart Greenberg and Mark Stone to the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your firm.
Our firm handles catastrophic personal injury claims where people have either been injured or have lost a loved one through the negligence of another, whether it be a trucking accident, whether it be a medical malpractice case, an airplane disaster, motorcycle accident, car crash, cruise accident, things of that nature.
Basically, little guy against big guy, right?
Sure.
The David and Goliath kind of cases. Now, today we're going to be talking about a rather horrific case, a 18-wheeler case with Michelle Cardenas. Tell us a little bit about this case.
This is a tragedy. We represent a very young lady in her mid-20s who is a school teacher on her way home from school on a Friday afternoon, minding her own business, doing nothing wrong when an 18-wheeler decided to make a U-turn across a 4-lane divided highway. And her car went underneath the back of the trailer, came out the other side with its top ripped off. She was airlifted to the Jackson Memorial Hospital Ryder Trauma Center.
She was knocked out in that accident.
She was unconscious, and she had a Glasgow coma scale of 7, which 15 is normal, 7, the survivability rate is probably under 20%, 25%.
And explain for our audience what that means.
The paramedics and doctors have certain tests that they do on someone in the field and in the hospital to see about how alert they are neurologically. And a 7's a very low score on that scale. And as a result, she's got permanent brain damage.
Okay. What has been the result of pursuing this case?
Well, in terms of the result of the client is fortunately we were able to reach a settlement on
Right.
their behalf, which should enable Michelle to get a great deal of her life back.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, she had what's called a diffuse axonal injury, which is an injury to the axons, which is structures, microscopic structures between the gray and the white matter. Once they're ripped or torn, they don't repair themselves. So we feel fortunate that we were able to get her a sum of money, which is going to allow her to regain some normalcy in her life.
Right. As a result of this accident, she can no longer teach, correct?
That's correct.
She doesn't have the capability of teaching?
She probably, according to our experts, is really unemployable. She could only handle very menial tasks. Right now she helps out in the family business, but her ability to stay focused, her executive functions have severely been compromised.
Mm-hmm. We have with us today both her as well as her dad in the studio. And I'd like to bring on her dad first so we can talk a little bit about the challenges that they as a family face and her. So let's do that right now. It's my great pleasure to introduce Gabriel Cardenas, the father of Michelle. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Take us back to that day when you first heard that your daughter was involved in this horrible accident and had been airlifted to the hospital. What were your thoughts as a father?
It's very painful because in this case we didn't know what had happened. The hospital could not reach us until about 10 o'clock at night. Then the phone rang in a neighbor's house. He came over to our house and knocked on the door real loud in a panic, like we didn't know what had happened. We thought it was something wrong with him. As it turned out, he just said that Jackson, where the hospital where Michelle was, had called that we needed to go over there immediately because Michelle was involved in an accident. But they won't tell you anymore over the phone or anything. But of course, when we went into the emergency, which actually is not the emergency, but is the live resuscitation area where she was, we saw her there, you know, all strapped and with all kinds of wires, and very painful. She was in a coma completely, and she was gone several times, you know. And, but we were lucky that she came out of it little by little. That was the beginning.
Yeah. How long did that take to get so that she was kind of conscious?
No, it took several days before she was conscious.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, she seemed to be conscious, but she wouldn't remember anything in the hospital, which was like 3.5 weeks.
Right.
But she was in this resuscitation area for close to 36 hours, I believe. You know.
When you say she didn't remember anything in the hospital, what are the things that she didn't remember?
Nothing. It's hard for her to remember.
She remembered who she was.
Well, when she was in the hospital, they would ask her.
Yeah.
One of the requirements to get it out of the resuscitation area into emergency and then into the brain injury area wing was that she had to respond to her name.
Yeah.
What's your name? And then also to try to remember what date it was. What's today?
Yeah.
And it took her like 3 days before she could, you know, she would guess, you know, what day it was and, you know, where she was, or she wouldn't even answer her name. And of course, she was sleeping or knocked out.
Yeah.
The first hours, she was just unconscious,
Yeah.
totally unconscious.
As a father, not being able to do anything, it must be very painful, excruciatingly painful.
It's very, very difficult to go through that pain. You see your dream, your daughter there. Very difficult. That some nut went around and did some stupid thing carelessly and just ruined her life. And you see there, you can't do anything about it. You know, and these people didn't even call to see how is she, or never, you know, in the hospital or at home during these 3 years, never. How is Michelle? Never. Very, very sad.
Yeah. Stuart, what were the extent of her brain injuries?
The doctors consider them moderate to severe. And Michelle has been remarkable. She's worked very, very hard with her mom, with her dad, with her sister, with her brother to get back as much function as possible.
Right.
But she'll never be the same, unfortunately. And it has changed her life forever.
She was a middle school teacher.
Yeah, she was a specialist in literature, English literature.
She loves literature. I was talking to her before the show. Her favorite author is Virginia Woolf.
Yeah. She loves writing poems. Yes.
Now, she cannot teach anymore, but she works with your family business.
Well, she helps a little bit. She doesn't really work a lot because she has still a lot of problems from her brain injury. Some of the problems she has, one of them is short-term memory loss. So she'll forget things that happened yesterday or things that happened a few hours ago, or that we did this, or how to do this, even though she'll do it every day.
Right.
So
Is she able to go places by herself?
right now we're still not, we drive her around. We
Yes.
don't want her to drive yet, and we still drive her around, but she can function partially well.
Right.
The main thing that some of the problems with the brain that she still has is like she has some of the concentration. It's hard for her to concentrate sometimes.
We have her with us today in the studio, and we're going to bring her on right now. It is my great pleasure to introduce Michelle to the show. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Thank you.
What an ordeal. Your dad was talking about how he felt as a father, and there's lots of fathers out there who have children, and you know, I could understand perfectly what he was saying. Take us back to that day, you know, the day of the accident. Do you remember anything about it?
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing? You don't even remember approaching the truck or anything? Nothing?
No.
And then what is your first remembrances as you were in the hospital?
I was in the hospital for about a month, and I only slightly remember about the last 2 days.
Okay.
And that's very, very vaguely remember something.
Right. Did you know why you were in the hospital?
From what they told me,
Yeah.
that I was in an accident,
Right.
but only from what people had told me. I don't remember anything that had happened.
Now, do you realize, you know, like some of the things that have happened to you?
Right.
What do you understand has happened to you as
Well,
a result of this accident?
As a result of the accident, I have brain trauma.
Okay. And what does that mean exactly to you?
What do you mean
How
exactly?
does it affect you?
In so many ways, it's not even, I mean, I don't even know where to begin.
Okay. You were a middle school teacher before in literature, right?
Yes.
I think some of your kids sent you cards like this one. Do you want to hold that up for the camera? We miss you, Mrs. C. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. You remember teaching?
Yeah.
What do you miss about it?
That's like when they told me that I couldn't teach, that was like the worst thing that they could have told me ever.
Okay.
That's like, that was like the worst thing ever. Just because it wasn't necessarily what I had gone to school for. I got a degree in English literature, and the first job that was offered to me was this teaching job. I was in the process of getting certified, but it was definitely my vocation. I loved it, and when they told me that it was something that I couldn't do because of the brain trauma, it was something that really struck me. It was horrible, horrible.
What is the best thing you liked about teaching?
It's just being able to reach young minds.
Open them up to good literature.
Exactly, yeah, definitely. And I guess because I am so young,
Yeah.
just I had a connection with them,
Right.
and they were able to learn, I guess, in different ways. Just, and the fact that I can't do that now is just the worst.
Do you sometimes think that maybe in the future you might be able to do this?
I hope so. There's a lot of people that defy.
Right, and you're a miracle, aren't you?
Right.
I think your dad was saying it's truly amazing what happened, because we've seen the pictures, and our audience has too, of what happened to your car, and the roof was gone, wasn't it?
Yes.
Totally gone. Your lawyers recently settled the case. What's your opinion of your lawyers?
The best.
The best? Because, you know, they had, you know, because nobody wants to take responsibility here, do they?
No.
The trucking company, you said, didn't call in 3 years. Nobody called.
Right.
I watched the deposition of the truck driver, and it was one time when he broke down, and I couldn't figure out, if he was breaking down because he lost his job or he caused this accident, you know.
Yes. He was very unconcerned, yes.
Yeah.
Very unconcerned. And
Right. You look like you're thinking. What are you thinking about?
Oh, I was just thinking about this man that he just totally changed my life, and he never even once thought.
Rigoberto Machado.
Yes.
Right? Never thought at all. Did you watch those depositions by any chance?
No, but I was there.
Yeah.
When,
you were there.
Well, during my depositions
Yeah.
anyway.
Okay.
And just at the mediation, let's say, and that he was there.
we spare her the pain of watching some of these
Yeah, sure.
things, even the car pictures.
Yeah.
You know, she hasn't seen those
No, thank God.
at all. You know,
Oh.
we've kept them away from her, and the lawyers have to.
Well, you're an amazing individual. I'm glad you were able to spend some time with us today. And you inspire other people that no matter what happens to them, they always get a shot at trying to make things
It's a
better.
miracle, yes.
Yeah, and I want to thank you very much for spending your time with us. They're amazing clients, aren't they?
They are.
She is an amazing individual, and I can understand she inspired you to win this case. Tell us a little how you won the case.
We won it with a lot of hard work, and we really won it because of her. We won it by getting the best experts, by doing animations, by interviewing witnesses, and by forensically showing how this accident happened.
Now, the key person in this was the truck driver on the defense's side. And fortunately, you did a lot of video depositions that we're going to show a few of them where, for example, he admits that he made an illegal turn. So we'll go to that right now.
What does it say about making right turns from the right shoulder, or making U-turns from the right shoulder of the road?
Well, that's illegal.
So the move that you were making was illegal?
No se puede hacer, pero no se debe hacer.
It can be done, but one shouldn't do it.
I also was amazed when you asked him in this deposition that whose fault it was. And he said what?
He blamed my client. He
Yeah.
blamed Michelle.
And we have a certain segment of that. We'll show that right now.
I myself don't consider myself as at fault in this accident.
Who do you consider to be the cause of this accident?
¿Quién considera usted que es el causante de este accidente?
La muchacha que
The
chocó
girl.
conmigo.
The girl who crashed with me.
Their position from the beginning was it was her fault, wasn't it?
Yes.
How did they figure that? I mean, was that just their position because they didn't want to pay, or what was the rationale?
Well, Steve, I think, yeah, they didn't want to pay, but ultimately I think what it came down to was she was so badly injured, she had no recollection of the accident.
Yes.
And I think at the end of the day, they wanted to use that against her. In other words, she wasn't able to explain what she did to avoid the accident.
Yeah.
And that's what they were going to try to rely on. Unfortunately, it didn't work.
Now, this case was settled.
Correct.
But
On
you
the eve
were
of trial.
On the eve of trial. And how long had the preparation been from the date you got the case to the date of trial?
It was exactly 3 years from the date of the accident.
Wow.
We didn't get the case for a month. The parents were too concerned about their daughter to
Sure.
even hire a lawyer. We had 2 trial dates previously, and at the last moment, the defense got emergency continuances.
Okay.
So we would have been ready to go 18 months after the accident,
Yeah.
but we were put off that long.
Now, that seems a little unfair to your client where they get continuances that extend it 18 months.
Yes.
Why is the judge going along with that program?
Well, unfortunately, that's it's delay, delay, delay. That's the.
But how many times can they delay it?
Well,
They're smiling.
As many as they can, as often as they can.
But doesn't a judge step up finally and say, you know something, this is too many delays?
Well, understand that judges have over a thousand cases, and
Yeah.
with the foreclosure crisis in Miami-Dade County, they have some 6,000 cases.
Yeah.
So their calendars are booked, and we try to fight for trial dates, actually.
Yes.
And in this case, we claimed we had a 3-week trial with a lot of witnesses, and we needed to go.
So the foreclosure crisis is causing a crisis with getting other cases heard.
Absolutely.
yeah, sure. It's just caused a tremendous influx of cases of litigation into the court system. So
And the insurance companies know that, don't
Sure, of course, and they
They
use
use
that
it.
to delay and put off settlements.
they? Now, you said it was settled on the eve of trial.
Sunday-
tell us
Sunday
that
evening.
day what happened.
So I got a call from an adjuster Friday afternoon,
Yeah.
and basically we spoke all weekend long, and on Sunday we finally resolved the case.
They came back with an initial lowball offer.
They lowballed this case to literally 11:59
On Sunday evening.
on Sunday evening.
It was the day before trial.
And
They
at 11:59, you were talking to the lawyers on the other side?
Just about, yeah.
Okay, now, words have been exchanged on the telephone. How do you know the next morning you're going to wake up and they're going to even recall the conversation? They're going to disclaim they ever said it. When do you get things in
We
writing?
went in front of the judge the next morning, and I went on the record and announced the settlement and for how much in the terms of the settlement.
And this is a confidential settlement.
That's correct.
Okay. And so then the judge gives you how long to draw it up, so our audience understands
It
how
was
this works.
we drew it up that day.
You do. And part of the settlement is obviously they got to pay within a certain period of time.
Correct, and that's part of the terms of the settlement agreement.
And obviously they paid.
They've paid and it has been funded, yes.
But there are people that write up settlements that don't pay within that period of time, right?
We've had it this year. We've had to go into court a number of times to enforce settlements where we get attorney's fees, costs, and interest for making them pass.
Yeah, well, you guys did an outstanding job, and I'm glad you did because Michelle's a great person. So's her dad. And thank you very much for being on the program. Really
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
having us.
Nice to be here.
Thanks for joining us. You can get more information about our guest and the issues at insiderexclusive.com.